Boxing Unfiltered, Lucas Media. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Do you guys remember when Lennox Lewis fought Mike Tyson June 8th, 2002 in Memphis, Tennessee? I also believe that was the first time there was really a merger with HBO and Showtime. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost positive that was the only situation. And in that fight, this fight in 2002 was 6 years in the making, because you guys remember when Mike Tyson fought Evander Holyfield, he had to pay Lennox Lewis $4 million step-aside money because Mike Tyson was a WBC champion after beating Frank Bruno, and Lewis was the mandatory. But Don King, who was Mike Tyson's promoter at the time, wanted to fight against Evander Holyfield, which people was waiting that fight to happen since the 192. But Lewis threatened to take Mike Tyson and the WBC to court for skipping the mandatory, since Lennox Lewis was the mandatory. And then, of course, that's like I said, that's when Mike Tyson paid Lewis $4 million, and the fight never happened in the 90s. Well, that same thing happened in 2001 when Mike Tyson became a WBC contender, and Tyson Camp tried to schedule a fight with someone else first, violating the WBC rules, and Lennox Lewis and his team filed a federal lawsuit in New Jersey against Mike Tyson, Don King, and the WBC, accusing Mike Tyson of bypassing the mandatory challenger rules, basically bypassing his mandatory, and the court ruled in favor of Lennox Lewis, which made Mike Tyson fight Lewis immediately or be stripped of his WBC ranking. And the rest is history. Mike Tyson got knocked out in the 8th round by Lennox Lewis, one of the biggest at that time, the biggest order fights in history, one of the biggest paydays in history for not only Mike Tyson but Lennox Lewis. But look, we're gonna do like I said, this is the first Ring That Never Was series, and we're gonna make it to where the fight should have happened in the 90s. There's a couple of things that gotta change. Mike Tyson never fires Bill Caden, or he never fires Kevin Rooney. Without those two, Mike Tyson never becomes who he should have been. So Mike Tyson never got in trouble with Bill Caden and Kevin Rooney kind of keeping him grounded and active in fights. So he never goes to jail. But he does beat Buster Douglas, okay, because Holyfield was guaranteed $9 million next fight. But he loses to Holyfield in a shocker just as big as, almost like when he lost to Buster Douglas. And Holyfield ended up retiring. Frank Bruno gets the belt. He's champion for several years. Mike Tyson fights Frank Bruno, same timeline. You can say Mike Tyson fought Frank Bruno in 95, becomes champion, and now you're scheduled up against him and Lennox Lewis. And we'll just say that Lennox Lewis has the other two titles. So at the time, which was WBA and IBF. So let's just say Mike Tyson, off his name, gets the bigger purse. So it's going to be, let's say he makes $35 million, Lennox Lewis makes $30 million, right? Because the fight will be in 1996. The biggest payday ever. Nobody's ever got paid that much. Don King and Lewis Promoters main event at the time do a co-promotion, right? And also HBO and Showtime came together. So you got Jimmy Lennon and Michael Buffer doing the ring announcements. And like I said, Mike Tyson has Kevin Rooney. Lennox Lewis has Emmanuel Stewart. So you got two of the greatest trainers of all time. And I know a lot of people say, well, Kevin Rooney trained Mike Tyson. That's the only one you needed. And Kevin Rooney was picked by Customato to train Mike Tyson. Well, Mike Tyson isn't a shell of himself. And like I said, Lennox Lewis was in his prime around that time as well. I would have Mike weighing in about 215, but Lennox Lewis about 230. So, of course, Lewis is bigger than Mike Tyson. And yeah, Mike Tyson was 234 when he fought Lewis, and Lewis was 249. But like I said, both of these guys are in their prime. And Mike Tyson, when he was trained by Kevin Rooney, was a lot slimmer and a lot quicker. I remember Larry Merchant talking about how when he was fighting Lennox Lewis, Mike Tyson wasn't really moving his feet that much. And that's why I said at that point he was past his prime. He was a little heavier. But imagine if you would have seen a Mike Tyson 215 pounds when he fought Lewis in 2002. Since this would be taking place in 1996, of course, keys to victory of Mike Tyson, you got to be explosive, close the distance. You can't be on Lennox Lewis' jab, work the body, stay mentally focused and disciplined. Sometimes Mike, he would get a little frustrated out there, and avoid getting clinched. With Lennox Lewis being 6'5", he's going to try to grab onto him. So you want to make sure he doesn't do that. Of course, with Lennox Lewis, use the jab, tie up on the inside. You know, you don't want Mike Tyson freely throwing hooks and uppercuts and steady approaching. Stay composed and patient. Use straight right hands behind the jab, and also maintain ring generalship with Mike Tyson. And then if you go back and watch him fight Michael Johnson, Marvin Frazier, I mean, he was just explosive, you know, so he would be similar to that in 1996. And if he stepped with Kevin Rooney. So round one, Mike Tyson's going to definitely be running in on Lennox Lewis. Will he catch Lewis? Sure. But I mean, of course, Lewis is strong, and he's going to be working behind that jab. And, of course, Mills Lanes would be the referee, with Larry Merchant and Evander Holyfield being the ring announcers. So, honestly, I mean, I could see it to where the first couple of rounds, Mike Tyson's coming off real explosive. Lennox Lewis is backpedaling because he's not trying to get caught with Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's trying to go for the head. Kevin Rooney trying to tell him to calm down, work on the body. I can see the middle rounds, Lennox Lewis starting to counter and keep Mike on the jab. And while this would be a tough competitive fight, I could see Mike Tyson beating Lennox Lewis, honestly. And a lot of people would disagree with me because, like I said, Lennox Lewis pretty much beat everybody. I mean, he beat Evander Holyfield. Yeah, the first match was controversial, but he beat him in the second one. He beat Ray Mercer, went back and beat Oliver McCall after a loss. Andrew Galata, if I remember right, he was beating up on Riddick Bowe, but got disqualified twice. He beat Shannon Briggs, who was lineal at one point. I mean, Michael Grant. I mean, Lennox Lewis pretty much beat everybody. And he beat Klitschko. But Mike Tyson, man, I'm sorry. If you take Mike Tyson with Kevin Rooney, with Mike Tyson's discipline, that custom model got him, I honestly think Mike Tyson beats majority of the heavyweights, especially the ones in his era that he fought a loss against. Like I said, Mike Tyson versus Holyfield, Mike Tyson versus Lennox Lewis, Mike Tyson versus Buster Douglas. So I think that even Mike Tyson at 30 years old with Kevin Rooney, you know, working on his feet. And like I said, even if his feet isn't moving as much, Mike has stopped moving his head a lot. You know, if you go back and watch Buster Douglas fight, yeah, he wasn't moving his feet, but he was also just standing there square. And that happened with Lennox Lewis 2002. Yeah, he came out fast, but Mike started getting gassed after about the second, third round. And you know, that ultimately that's how he ended up getting knocked out. But if he has Kevin Rooney in his corner, he's going to, if anything, make sure he keeps moving his head and makes it to where Lennox Lewis doesn't keep holding on to him the entire time. Now, I don't know if Mike knocks out Lennox Lewis. If he does, it's probably going to be between the 9th and the 10th round. But I do believe that a in-shape, feet-head moving Mike Tyson beats Lennox Lewis. And then after that, of course, with Holyfield coming out of retirement, let's just say they end up refighting in. So I guess the ear bite, none of that happens. So let's say if Lennox Lewis beats Mike Tyson, if Mike Tyson beats Lennox Lewis, then he turns around and he fights Evander Holyfield in 1998. And I say 1998 because Tyson gives Lewis a rematch in 1997 and beats him then as well. But I just want to get my quick thoughts about it. I mean, do y'all agree and disagree? Do y'all think that a 30-year-old Mike Tyson would have lost to Lennox Lewis, even if Mike Tyson had Kevin Rooney in his corner? I don't think so. And I also think that, I remember I said earlier how Mike Tyson had Bill Kading when he fired him. I think that if Mike Tyson kept Bill Kading around, with Kevin Rooney as his trainer, I think Mike Tyson's image would have been up there with Michael Jordan. But I'm going to make a separate video about that. But I want to get my quick thoughts about it. Tell me what y'all think.